Let's start with this. Is it, just by a show of hands, is it easier to get these projects done now? How many of you think that this is easier to get the kind of projects that bring you here done now than it was, say, 3 years ago? Easier. No. Oh, he's raised his hand in? Okay. So how many of you all think it's harder to get these kind of projects done than it was, say, 3 years ago? All right, there's only one choice left. How many of you think that there's been no change? It's the same. Over. You know, this is what happens when you get a bunch of politicians. You can't say yes, you can't say no. So let's start with Joe Saladino. No, I'm lying. Joe, we'll come back to you. You and I, we talk all the time. I'm going to start with Ed. Since we hadn't heard from Smithtown before, and I want you to tell me privately what kind of words you all called Eric. But what are you guys doing in Smithtown? And was there a change, and why the change?
Well, good morning. Enjoy. In Smithtown, I guess from the award that Eric talked about, the bar was kind of low. So, but I'm happy to be here, and we have changed many things in Smithtown. We have many projects going through our business districts right now. In the hamlet of St. James, we have $8.5 million. That project will be more than likely started in late 19. That's a dry sewer main, that's brand new water mains, that's a complete renovation of the Lake Avenue, which runs right through the St. James Business District. In Smithtown proper, which is our second downtown business area, we have the $20 million that the governor graciously put in an account for sewering. We are presently working on how to get that wastewater to Sewer District 6 in Kings Park. That's ongoing with the county. We also just brought to Smithtown Tesla Automotive, and we just inked a site plan with CarMax to locate right in the heart of Smithtown along our car row. So those are huge projects in Smithtown. In Kings Park, we are anxiously awaiting the state legislature to go back into session and approve a 4,000 square foot alienation bill. And upon completion of that, we will be ready to do the pump station, and Kings Park is shovel ready for sewering to go into District 6. One of the other initiatives that we have taken on is the Hauppauge Industrial Park. That is an economic engine for Smithtown. We have completed zone changes along Motor Parkway to go from 35 feet to 62 feet, and we already have our first 5-story building under construction. We just inked a site plan for a 100,000 square foot expansion. So we're working very closely with the Hauppauge Industrial Association as well. And that brings a huge amount of tax rateables into Smithtown. It's vital. It's a vital economic engine. So we are extremely busy in Smithtown. To sum it up right now, we have 1.1 million square feet of commercial space, either underway, in the application process, or in the planning department. 800,000 square feet of that is actually underway as we speak. So we're pretty excited in Smithtown. It's a new generation, it's a new energy, and we're moving along well.
And you have sewers. I'm so jealous. Let's go over here to Joe, since you had to raise your hand and nod your head. Did you say it's, what's up in Oyster Bay?
Well, in Oyster Bay, we're making so many new improvements. It's a very exciting time. We've instituted same-day permits for a plethora of residential applications, and now we're turning to the business community to speed up the permit process. We, overnight, have become the #1 town in terms of solar applications, same-day permits on that as well. We've been lowering taxes to make it more feasible to move into Oyster Bay, and The tale of the tape, it really says it all. In downtown Hicksville, where our revitalization project has garnered us a $10 million grant from Governor Cuomo, and great thanks to him. And we're moving quickly with that process and opening the door to more development and redevelopment and the transit-oriented downtown revitalization that we've needed for many, many years.
Any blowback? I mean, I think all of you now have projects going, right? Every single municipality that you represent have these kind of projects going. Is that correct? You're supposed to say yeah, because I know you do, right? Okay. Any blowback coming in terms of too much, too high, too many people living in there, too much change too fast? What are you hearing on that score? Yes, Laura.
Well, I think good morning, everybody. Being in Riverhead, you know, there's the balance between what we want to maintain as rural and then developing housing and being able to develop more projects. We have Route 58, which is really a regional shopping destination. We're revitalizing our downtown. We've added a lot of workforce housing there. And I think what we originally did was we had 5-story apartment buildings, height-wise, and the community has pushed back a little on that. They don't want to see as high buildings to accommodate the housing. So we're looking at that and possibly spreading out the area where the housing could be placed so that it fits more into the character of the area. So I think there's a balance in being able to develop, especially the mixed use, with retail and housing, and being able to maintain the character of the community. So I think when you can strike that balance, it's a positive win for everybody, because you're able to accommodate what you need to have in place to be able to support not only young people moving into the area, but also to support people as they're aging up, so that they can stay on Long Island and afford it also. So it's a mix. And I think it's a balance, and I think to keep the conversation going with the community has helped a lot.
In Nassau, how are you guys doing? Buildings too high, too deep, too wide?
Good morning.
Good morning.
So in the town of Hempstead, we're really excited because we have probably 2 of the largest projects that are going to be going forward on Long Island occurring within the town. That, of course, I mean the Belmont development and the development at the hub. Now, both of these projects are in the very early stages. They're still largely in the conceptual stage. We, as elected officials in the town, are looking very much to talk to our communities to make sure that we get their input and that they're part of the process before the shovels get in the ground. There was just a hearing at the legislature, the Nassau County Legislature, about the vision for the hub and the new project that may go forward. And some of the questioning from the people on the legislative body actually was I heard a lot of pushback about millennial housing, which I was quite surprised, because I think millennial housing is one of the most crucial things that we need to develop across Long Island, because we see too many of our young people moving away. I had my nephew as a case in point. He's a young man. He graduated from college. He's got loans, and he's got an entry-level job, and he's moving. He got offered a job in South Carolina where it's much more affordable, so he's moving. And once my other nephew graduates from college, he's probably going to take his parents with him, because it's just people are getting priced out of the market here on Long Island. So to have millennial housing, I think, is absolutely vital, and something that we must work together with the development community to make sure that there's a way that developers are interested in building this type of housing, and we can find the kind of housing that our young people can afford, or else we're going to have a brain drain, and we're not going to keep talent here on Long Island. And not only will we lose our young people, we will probably lose their parents with them, because generally people want to live where their children live.
Let's talk a bit about millennial housing. What is millennial housing? I've heard micro apartments. You want to talk a little bit more about what specifically millennial housing is?
Well, the millennial housing that they were proposing at the hub is conceptually that it's basically like having a 3-bedroom or a 4-bedroom apartment, but there is an ability to lock the door for the individual bedroom and have like a common space. So to me, it seems kind of like dorm living. However, you can lock your individual bedroom unit if you want to. So this way, it's kind of a roommate situation, but you do have some privacy if you don't know the person that you're moving in with.
Chad, my buddy, my supervisor. What is going on in the town? You actually have an interesting problem I wanted to ask you about. Cold Spring Harbor train station. Okay. There was a story in Newsday which says that the people who live in that community, they want more parking at that train station. It's tight. I went past it this morning. But they don't want a garage, but they still want more parking. But they don't want a garage, but they want more parking. And you said that you were going to figure this out.
So several weeks back, we did receive $11 million grant from the state of New York, thanks to Senator Flanagan and Senator Marcelino. And the money was earmarked for both the Huntington train station and the Cold Spring Harbor train station. $7 million going to the Cold Spring Harbor train station, $4 million going to Huntington train station, working on the parking decks that are at the Huntington train station, and also helping to resurface the lots. In Cold Spring Harbor, it's a little bit more difficult there because of the surrounding residential area, and also there's preserved land surrounding it too. So there's a piece of property that's bordering on Nassau and Suffolk, so Oyster Bay and Huntington, that was just rezoned for assisted living. So they're going to be putting up assisted living in that area. And then the money came in for parking solutions towards Cold Spring Harbor train station. So we've been in dialogue with the Civic Association, the neighbors in the area. One of the proposals is to put a parking deck, but it seems to have some resistance from the neighbors around that could yield around 150 new lots. So we're looking at also the bordering surrounding areas that aren't protected to see maybe we can continue purchasing areas around to create more level parking. And then we'll work along with the Civic Association, the neighbors, as plans are developed and come through to see if a parking deck, it's not going to be a parking garage, it wouldn't be a large parking structure, it'd be one level deck, to see if that's a feasible option also.
So you're going to put some housing there? I'm just messing with you. Let's go back over on this. North Hempstead, what are you guys up to? You've got Newcastle going again, right?
We do.
Any more scandals coming out of there? You taking any more sand out of the ground? No, I'm joking. Go ahead.
So one of the things, I think I'm going to take this out. Oh, no, I'm not. So one of the things that's happening in Newcastle is we have recently broken ground on a 77-unit affordable senior housing complex in Newcastle. And it's on the site of the former Grant Street School. So it's actually a very poignant thing because we had many of the people coming to the groundbreaking who had actually attended the Grant Street School. And, you know, you don't take down a school easily because you know it's filled with so many memories and thoughts of all the great things that had happened there. So we said a very nice goodbye to the school and are now in the process of building this affordable housing for seniors there. One of the things that enabled that to happen is we did take advantage of a new zoning change so that the acreage was allowed to go from 5 acres down to just 2, and we lowered the age of the senior housing to 55. So it would bring in more people would actually be able to take advantage of this. Also, we worked with the developer, David Gallo, who I believe is going to be on a panel here at some of the time, who's done some wonderful work with our housing authority, and we worked an arrangement with him so that we're also getting more parking for our Yes We Can community center. There's a huge revitalization effort going on in Newcastle, and the community center really is at the heart of community activities. One of the problems was not enough parking, so we were able to combine those two to get more parking. I do want to comment, though, on, because we're talking about parking, and I was listening to what Chad was saying, and the challenges that I think all of us face with that. People don't want garages, but yet we need more parking. And so the idea of just asphalting over more and more property is also something that is not, I believe, in the best interest of the town. I think we need to start really trying to change our commuting habits. one of the things that's happening in North Hempstead is there's a pilot program going on actually in the village of Port Washington North, where we're doing a shuttle, and they're working with Residents Forward to see if we can get people to actually leave their cars at home and find other ways of getting to the station. And I think in the future, we really need to look at car ride sharing, shuttle buses, and things of that nature to encourage people to actually get to the station, but leaving their cars behind.
All right. Okay, I hear some applause. So let me ask you guys, how many of you guys, the last time you took the Long Island Railroad, left your car at home? Well, let's try it a different way. How many of you guys have used the Long Island Railroad in the past, say, year? All right, now we know what the universe is. Of those who used the Long Island Railroad in the last year, how many of you habitually leave your car at home? You got a problem.
Yeah.
you got a problem. An opportunity. Oh, excuse me. We have an opportunity. I forgot. These are all politicians. It's
I've
not
had
a problem. It's a challenge. That's even better.
You got transit advocate there.
So I want to talk to you about the Oyster Bay Garage, but in a minute.
Actually, we have the solution on the parking issue that we're speaking about right now.
All right. Well, we're going to go to Angie Carpenter over here first, because Angie, what's up?
Lots of good things in the town of Islip. First of
We'll talk
all,
about the bad- we'll talk about the bad things later.
no, nothing's bad. Challenging, but never bad. We were very fortunate to have finally been awarded the DRI grant, $10 million for Central Islip's downtown. And I say finally because it took us 3 tries. And of course, the first year it went to Westbury, and the second it went to Hicksville. And these 2 gentlemen on either side of me were competing, and I think Riverhead was too. But we were successful. And this is an area.
I'm
Thank
sorry.
you.
Do you think you were successful in part because somebody was running for governor and needed the vote in that area?
No.
No. Okay. Just checking. Good. I'm just messing with you, Angie.
She does that so well. It was the right application at the right time. And a lot of investment has already been done on both sides of this particular corridor, and I think that probably was a selling point, because to the south, we have 2 brand-new hotels, 2 courthouses, the only federal courthouse on Long Island, Duck Stadium, many apartment projects, 2 brand-new hotels, I said, a sports complex coming in across the street, the town's building a brand-new animal shelter, and then north of the area, is pretty stable and developed on both sides of Carlton Avenue, on Suffolk Avenue. It's thriving. But this particular area from Suffolk south to Smith is really, really derelict, very needing of attention. So we got the 10 million, and we're in that whole process now of working with the community. We had our first public visioning session. It was incredibly successful. Over, I would say, close to 300 people came out and worked in groups and shared their ideas. The only thing that I'm concerned about, we're on a very, very fast time frame. So those who have been given the grant know what I'm talking about, and those that will be getting them in the future. It's a very structured process, working with the governor's office, the Department of State, the consultants that the state assign, and working with the community. So I'm going to be leaving early because I've got my weekly conference call on the grant.
And that's why I worked you in. But
And I appreciate
nobody
that.
noticed that, right? Nobody noticed it.
But we have a model, I think, because of what we've done in Bayshore, downtown Bayshore, that truly has been a success. And I was there in the beginning. I was in the legislature at the time. That was part of my legislative district. There was a 40% vacancy rate in downtown Bayshore at the time. And now the town created a downtown development district, encouraged 4 to 5-story mixed-use buildings. There have been 13 projects approved, 557 units of housing, In the last 5 years, we've had 10 new restaurants, so it's become quite the dining destination downtown Bayshore. And the location of it is key because it's a block from the railroad, and people are commuting into the city from there, and it's about 2 blocks from the ferry to take you to Fire Island. So it's it has a lot, going for it. CI, too, has a lot of possibilities, and we're very excited about it. And I think working with the community can be challenging at times, but very, very rewarding, and they're very energized and excited, and I'm really happy about it.
Thank you.
Let's give a hand to Andy for all that. He's doing a lot of good.
Does that mean you didn't want to give a hand to anybody else?
No, I'm just saying.
All right, I'm just checking. You're very welcome. I knew you all were thinking that, right? I'm going to come back to you on parking, and I also need to go back to Chad in terms of height in apartment buildings, because I know there's some other things going on in Huntington. And we haven't seen Mr. Romaine over there yet because you're blocking him. There he is. Chad is tall. But I want to go to Farmingdale. Farmingdale, you guys have done a lot over in your area. And last year I was talking about how you got your Starbucks. So you guys have arrived. What's happened since you got your Starbucks?
Well, our downtown is thriving so much that the Board of Trustees formed a Merchants Association. And what a thriving downtown needs is a BID. A business improvement district. Now, Nassau County and Town of Oyster Bay have not had a business improvement district in many years. We have filed this month with the State Controller's Office. So Farmingdale is in the process of having its own business improvement district for our downtown.
Wow.
In terms of housing and parking, we'll go to housing. Our 109 corridor is the board is looking at opportunities for 100% affordable housing only. Yep. If you want to build in the 109 corridor in Farmingdale, 100% affordable housing, and where we are looking at some of it being 50% of the income of Nassau County and the rest at 80%. So we're really looking to keep our millennials in our downtown areas. In terms of parking, most villages have an underutilized train lot at night and the weekends, because as a general rule over the weekend, very few people commute to the city, and at night you only get the civil servants, hospital shift workers who use the railroad. We did a survey Monday through Friday. We have 300 empty spots in our railroad, and over the weekend we have 450. So what we're looking to do is, it's only a 3 to 5 minute walk, but it's amazing how people don't want to walk.
Really?
Really, yeah. So we're looking at getting companies to come in and transport the people from the train station to our downtown, and getting the business improvement district to pay for it.
Wow. That's pretty innovative. But go ahead. There's a table of young people looking back there. I can tell because I don't see much gray hair. Talk to them in terms of 100% affordable housing, 50% millennials. What price point are you looking
Well,
at?
the 50%, which would apply to the millennials, is approximately 48 total income of the household would be $48,000, less than $48,000. If you make more than $48,000, you wouldn't qualify. You'd have to go into the 80%, which is somewhere around $78,000 for the family. So we believe that 48 is a good number to keep our 48 and below is a good number to keep our millennials on Long Island.
All right, so let me ask you all this. How many of you all have young people living in your basement, like gnomes? No. How many people have young people living at home? Young people living at home, right? Okay. Do you think that $48,000 is be enough to get them out? What do you think? No? I'm seeing no's. How many think 48,000 will be enough to get them out of there?
Come on, you gotta be realistic.
Raise them up, raise them up.
You're not gonna
Okay.
have, what do you want, affordable housing?
How many of you think it
$50,000?
won't be enough? Okay.
Yes.
Now, we're all parents, or many of us are parents here. How many of you think it'll be enough with help from mommy and daddy? Okay, there's some in the back. Good answer. It's good answers. I'm going to wander back over to Suffolk Town I still can't see Ed, man. Ed. Come on, Ed. What you got, man? Chad, I'm just messing with you. My son's taller than
Brookhaven
you are.
is a busy place. The Yaphank Meadows has finished its first section. It'll be 850 units. The first section of Ronkonkoma Hub will be finished in the spring. That'll be 1,450 units total. The first 500 will be online this spring. Concern for independent living, as you know, only builds 100% housing. We have several hundred units, not only at Ronkonkoma Middle Island, but they are starting in Port Jefferson Station. We just approved, I see Peter Flores back there, 100% affordable housing, I think 70 units for North Bellport. We have a lot of development happening in Brookhaven, but units don't tell the story. What tells the story is, do we have transportation? How much government do we have? How much do we pay in taxes? All of those issues are interconnected. What's our environment like in terms of threat from climate change? All of those are interrelated. To look at one and not look at the whole picture, you lose the thrust of where it's going. I mean, obviously, I feel, I saw Mitch Paley there. Mitch, are you around? Yeah, there you are, sorry. I saw Mitch there but our transportation lacks something. Our bus transportation in Suffolk, despite innovative ideas from County Executive Ballone, is actually going backwards. The bus stop to Town Hall was canceled. The bus stop to Stony Brook University was canceled. Our trains, I feel like I'm in the 19th century in Brookhaven Town. We still use diesel. Where's electric? Where is electric? We're not even asking for transformative transportation for the 21st century. We'd like to catch up to the 20th century and just have electric expanded east. As terms of government and the structure of government, Brookhaven Town was the only municipality in the state of New York to get a $20 million grant from the state, thank you, Governor Cuomo, for municipal consolidation and shared services. None of that money will go to my budget. All of that money will go to share services with our various fire departments, ambulance districts, with our erosion districts, with our 8 villages. So, I mean, it's an issue that if you're going to talk about housing, you've got to talk about a lot of other issues, starting with transportation, starting with the scope and the amount of government that we have and the level of taxation that we have. And until we do that and look at these things holistically, if we start looking at them in silos, we're not going to be that successful. So, I mean, in Brookhaven, we're taking a look at a lot of different things, including the threat that we face from climate change. We've had more rain this fall than just about any other fall. We watch our roads flooded, particularly near our waterways, and we have the ocean, the bay, and the sound. So we are concerned about a whole host of things in Brookhaven Town. And yes, we do believe we need to change our housing mix because people aren't buying homes in the same quantity. People want rental so that they can be more mobile. And we're going to look at all of those things in Brookhaven. And we are doing that. And we are building right now, under construction in Brookhaven Town, there's easily 1,000 units of housing, easily. That's easy to say. We happen to be the largest town by size in the state, and second by population with 500,000. But the challenge is for all of us on Long Island. One of the challenges we don't talk about, solid waste. That is a huge challenge that is coming. We have the last operating landfill. That will close eventually. That will be a huge challenge. We need more regional cooperation. We need to act as a region. We need to put our boundary lines and pretend they didn't exist and talk about how we're going to work together as municipalities. And we haven't seen that coming. We definitely need to do that. So when my recycling, like most recyclers here, fell apart, we entered into agreement with our partner town of Smithtown and Southold. And we will look to create a network amongst towns. This should be a regional problem. The state should be more deeply invested. They're not. So we as towns must work together. And kudos to the president of our Supervisors Association in Suffolk, Rich Schaefer, an old friend and a very capable individual, to work together as towns to accomplish what we should be seeing from the state and the federal government. And I don't want to talk about infrastructure because I'll just start crying. And that's not a good thing from a grown man. But I got to tell you how deeply disappointed I am in our president, where I had a lot of hope when he came in, when he talked about doing infrastructure, because we are so far behind. I don't have to tell anyone that has traveled. If you go to Europe or any other nation, in terms of our transportation networks, we are so far behind, and we are supposed to be one of the world's leaders. It begs the question if we have the right organization in terms of our governmental structure. But I'm going to get off my soapbox. Thank you.
Joy,
Well, Ed's given you guys an awful lot to chew on. Angie?
I just want to. Is this on? Yep.
Yeah.
I just want to, and maybe I will be sorry later, but, you know, Ed outlined and very, very eloquently the challenges that we have and the issues that we need to confront and don't always do. As far as the recycling, I will say that the town of Islip was very fortunate because, you know, sometimes you get lemons, you make lemonade. We've had a recycling program in place for many, many years, and many will remember that we were the town that actually was a laughing stock across the country and probably the world because of the garbage barge. But we do have a very robust, successful recycling program, dual stream. And a couple of years ago, when it was very much the vogue to go to single stream, and I will say, Newsday wrote this editorial really kind of pushing everyone to go in that direction. It was the next best thing to do. I had a lot of pressure and met with my commissioner, and he said, no, we've got a better product, a cleaner product, a more marketable product. Our residents have been educated all of these years. Why would we go backwards? So sometimes the press and those that can affect policymakers need to really be informed before they push some issues. But to the point of consolidation and the cost of living here and taxes, no one is wanting to say it, but schools have to be looked at. It is the largest portion of your tax bill. In our town, less than 5% of the total tax bill goes to the town of Islip. It goes to the school districts, ambulance, library, et cetera, the police districts. But the largest portion, sometimes nearly 70%, goes to the schools. And a number of years ago, when I ran for another office, I was asked at a forum about, well, what would you do about the schools? And, you know, everyone doesn't want to say the consolidation word. And I said, well, I would look at school districts townwide. We have 10 towns in the county of Suffolk, 10 school districts instead of 58 or 62 or whatever we have. It's a lot. In the town of Islip, we have 68. Okay, thanks. In the town of Islip, and I'm not saying that you're going to eliminate any school buildings or the principals or the teachers. That all stays in place. The high school, the Bayshore Marauders will still be the Marauders, and You know, the West Islip will still be the Lions, but you don't need to have a school superintendent and an assistant superintendent and God knows how many other assistants in every single hamlet. In Virginia, Florida, Maryland, it's countywide. I would never dare suggest countywide, that would be too radical, but at least can't we look at townwide? And it's the property taxes that are doing it, and schools are the biggest portion. And this issue has been looked at, and Ed mentioned Mitch Pally. Mitch served on a commission we put together to study alternatives to the property tax 25 years ago, and here we still sit. It's a tough one.
It's a tough one. I don't think I've ever heard a supervisor push consolidation of schools before. But let's do a reality check. But before we do a reality check, y'all back there near that door, hey, turn around. There you go. We're looking at your backs and we're hearing you talk, which ain't cool. So can you either take it out or bring it in? We would appreciate that, okay? You can tell I got kids, right? Oh, God. Now I just reality check. Let's talk to the room again. How many of you would be willing to give up your school district in return for a townwide school district?
Wow, that's pretty cool.
Wow. That's not... Raise your hand. You heard her. Wow. That's pretty unbelievable. Oh, look back there. See, no gray hairs back there. They're raising their hands. All right. And the children shall lead them. We'll hear from the young people in a little bit. Let's talk a little bit. Let me ask you something. You guys have all have built multifamily housing. And it seems to me that people are actually moving in and that there's actually a demand for it. Is that what you're finding in your municipalities? Are your populations going up? Are people leaving, single-family zombie homes? What does that look like, actually?
In Farmingdale, for example, the last project that opened, 27 units were rented within 8 weeks.
Wow.
And there's currently a waiting list of over 24 to get in there. So yes, there is the demand for transit-oriented development housing is phenomenal, especially in our town of Oyster Bay here and along the Central Line.
And what about your single-family housing stock? What's that looking like? Are they abandoning single-family housing, or are you getting a net increase?
No, in fact, in Farmingdale, according to the Realtors Association, the single-family housing went up 25% in value from 2015 to 2017. 2018 isn't in yet. So yes, the single-family homes cost so much with their increase that the millennials can't get the 20% deposit to put down. So which is one of the reasons why the transit-oriented development has taken off like wildfire, because it's very hard to put. If the average house is $400,000, you got to come up with 80 grand.
Wow.
That's a lot of money to put down.
We're going to go Nassau, Suffolk. So let's play some tennis for a while. What's it looking like where you are? Are more people coming in? Or is it a zero-sum game, in other words? If you build it, will more come? Or what's going on?
I think absolutely. We just completed a 54-unit apartment building in our downtown, and we had 900 applicants for the 54 apartments. So I think that just speaks volumes for the need for increased rental units across Long Island. And we have from Riverhead going west, we have a fairly distant commute. and people are looking for affordability where it is. I think that's one of the other issues that we have is I know we talk a lot about transit-oriented development, but I also think that we need to consider the job market. I think we need to work harder to bring the jobs to the different communities out on Long Island so that there isn't a need to commute so far. And then, we know very much, totally agree. We also know very much for millennials, they'll pick a place that they want to choose to live, and then they find their job. It's very different than years ago where people used to go to their jobs and choose there to live. So I think we need to take that into account as we're building up our downtowns and trying to invigorate them and to have more people come live. But we also, at the same time, need to work very hard to attract the jobs that they're gonna be able to afford to stay here.
What's it looking like in Oyster Bay? Is there demand for your multifamily housing? And give us an example, because these numbers are kind of...
Yes, quite frankly, there's a demand for both. We have new cluster housing developments. Country Point in Plainview is a perfect example of that, where there's a combination of condominiums, luxury condominiums. They're selling faster than they can be built. Our downtowns where there's transit, or any downtown where there's a railroad station, is the hottest place to build today. So they're both. Oyster Bay is someplace where people want to live. We recognize that the issues are housing, parking, and the fallout, if you will, of those of bringing more people in. The number of people is rising in the town of Oyster Bay. In terms of that housing and parking dynamic, through our Hicksville Downtown Revitalization Program and the grant from the governor, and we thank him very much, we were able to work with some of the world's best planners and architects. And one of the ideas, the initiatives that came out of those meetings, is to build parking garages wrapped in stores, restaurants, retail, with layers of housing above that. It's a great idea. It's a partnership between the MTA, who's responsible for the parking garages, and the private sector. So this is one of the dynamics, the solution, if you will, to this ongoing problem of where to house people, how to do it effectively and efficiently, and how to deal with the parking problem. On the note of parking, people should know just how expensive it is to build multi-level parking. It comes to $30,000 per parking spot. $30,000 per parking spot. So if you multiply that out to deal with the need, it's a tremendous expense. It is the responsibility of the MTA to provide the funding for that parking. We have a new slate of state senators here on Long Island, and we encourage them, as well as our assembly members, to work on getting the MTA to pay for that parking in all of our locations, and by wrapping them in apartments and retail. This is a new dynamic for the future of Long Island that we believe will work, and the downtown revitalization is already proven in Farmingdale, where you, Mayor Ekstrand, has done a fabulous job, in Patchogue with Mayor Pontieri, and that's that redevelopment in every downtown with a railroad station is the way to meet that need, while we're dealing with how do you process all the garbage and the sanitation and the energy needs. One of the energy needs is to top those buildings with solar energy. By the way, get same-day permits for solar in the town of Oyster Bay. And we see this as the new direction to head and the solution to this problem.
Are you all thinking about running for town supervisor? Anyway, let's go over here.
I'll go to, just to speak a little bit about
It
Huntington
means it's a
Station.
lot of work, man. It's all, relax. I'm not messing with you. For once, I'm not messing with you. It's all right. It's cool. For once. I'm sorry, Chad.
No,
go
no
ahead.
problem at all. So I'll concentrate a little bit on Huntington Station revitalization, because that's where we see a lot of progress going right now, especially north of the train station. Recently, the designation of Huntington Station as an opportunity zone was for private investment and job growth, and we've just finished completion of one of the buildings called the North Ridge Building, which is mixed use, and then we're expanding now over to our Gateway project, which will have over 60 apartments with retail space below, 60 apartments above. And then on the west side of New York Avenue, north of the train station, we're in the process of a land transfer from the state of New York to the town of Huntington for private development. So we'll continue to see mixed-use revitalization on the west side too. Then once you go south of the train station, we're looking at And all these units are being, bought or in terms of rented even before they're built. So, great progress.
They're being rented before they're built?
Well, they're being rented after they're, completed and such, but even before,
There's a
definitely
demand.
a waiting list.
So you tell me there's waiting lists even
Yeah,
before the
waiting
stuff
list
is
and
built?
demand, which is very high, which is great to see. And then we're working on the sewer infrastructure south of the train station, where we're working along with the county and doing a feasibility study, so that will really expand the progress along that area too. In terms of around Huntington Station, to make sure it continues to be an area that attracts and people can settle, and of course make it walkable to the train stations. The Conti Center is still under review in terms of having funding for that, so that's in our capital projects. And in late October in Huntington Station, we also broke ground on Columbia Terrace, which is a 14-unit veterans affordable housing development in Huntington Station. So we've seen a lot of great things going on. We want to continue focusing in that area. And once we go down to downtown Huntington, there is a lot of development down there. We continue to bring businesses down there, and we're working on parking solution. Recently, we just introduced Quick Rides. I know it's out in Patchogue and other areas, and I think Quick Rides is here today. That's been very effective, and we've just, you can give them a round of applause. People love it. Have you used them yet, Joy, when you're down in Huntington Village?
Say what now?
Have you used Quick Rides yet when you've been down there in Huntington Village?
No, I just drive my car like everybody else.
Well, you go from one spot to the other, no charge. It's based on sponsorship, so if you're visiting the Heckscher Museum and want to go over to Prime Restaurant or to a bar, you download the app, Quick Rides will take you from one spot to another. In terms of the other parking solutions that are going down there, we just allowed a feasibility study near New Street and Green Street for a parking structure, and we hope to have that wrapped up the next few weeks and see where we're going to go from there in terms of building the parking garage, too.
Back over here, you've got what? Oh. Laura goes first, right? Unless you want to cede your time. Good.
Yeah, so in the town of Hempstead, we're certainly not seeing a reduction in the demand for single-family homes, but we are seeing an increased demand for multifamily throughout the town on many different price points. We're seeing a lot of older people sell their big homes and move into more high-end or luxury condominiums. We see project before project come before us as a town board, and the reason those projects are being built is because people are moving into them, and people are buying those units. In the town of Hempstead, we're working closely with our town housing authority to increase and improve our affordable housing portfolio. Many of our buildings in the town of Hempstead have not been updated since the 1970s, so we are looking to partner with HUD and affordable housing developers to improve some of our housing stock in the affordable housing zone. We are also looking towards transit-oriented development and in Baldwin, the Baldwin revitalization, and also in Inwood. I'm working closely with my colleagues on the town board together to see real improvement in those two areas. In Baldwin, Baldwin is a place where they've been talking about revitalizing Baldwin for about 17 years, and plan after plan would fail. So we came in now with a new approach to Baldwin, and instead of doing the same failed plan, we're creating an overlay district for the corridor, all surrounding the train station in Baldwin. And most importantly, we're working very closely with the community. I saw a lot of our civic leaders earlier here today, so they can have real input as to what they want to see in that overlay district, what kind of density we think is the right mix for it to be attractive both to the community and also to the developers. What is the right exact formula? That's what we're working on collaboratively before we get shovels in the ground. So we're hoping that new approach there, and also in Inwood. I'm working with Councilman Blakeman on doing an overlay district in Inwood to create a thriving downtown in both of those communities.
Angie? Yeah, you were talking, man.
I'm sorry.
Okay.
We're doing a little business here. Smithtown's an house.
Do you two want to talk about, let me just ask you in general again. Multifamily housing is bringing people in, not at the expense of single family. Is that a fair summary? Okay, cool. Now I'm trying to rush a little bit because you gave me a time. And I saved the best for last? Yeah.
So I'm going to speak, I know this seems to be the panel of the millennium and Millennium Housing.
This can be whatever you want it to be.
Okay,
And
so I'm going to make it
I'm gonna-
about, we, in North Hempstead, as we do affordable senior housing, we find that the waiting list to get into these units just seems to be growing and growing. And so I would like to say that Money Magazine actually designated North Hempstead as one of the 8 best places to retire in the United States.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I will tell you, we love our seniors, and we do a lot to support them. We have something called Project Independence, and that's a program that has social workers behind it, nursing services behind it. We want to make sure that our seniors have the ability to age in place and that they don't have to move, that they can stay in the places that they've raised their children, that they've paid their taxes, and that they have really wonderful lives as they get older. We have something, a transportation component to that, so that our seniors can call 311, that's our go-to number in North Hempstead, and get a taxi at no cost for food shopping twice a week. There is taxi service available at a very reduced cost for medical appointments, any kind of testing, doctor's appointments, and that has really made our seniors far more independent. And that goes along with all the physical activities. We have something called Fun Day Monday in North Hempstead during the summer. Every Monday we get 1,000 seniors who come down to North Hempstead Beach Park, and there's music and there are activities, there are book clubs. It's a thriving place and a wonderful place to live.
Can I just ask you who won? Oh, go ahead, report. Go. Can you tell me how old the senior is? I'm just wondering.
I think that is a great question because, no, truly. Seniors can be anywhere from 60s, 70s. I will tell you, we had a senior club and the executive director was 102. The executive director running the club. So I think seniors, it's a whole new definition.
Thank you, Jesus. Okay. Now, Ed, you don't have a lot of multifam stuff. You got it in the hopper. But when you look at something like that, what goes through your head listening to your fellow municipal leaders?
Well, we do not. Certainly the sewering that we're working on is job one. We need that because in Smithtown, we do not have it, and we cannot meet the county health requirements, Board of Health requirements for sewering. So that's why that's so vital.
In Smithtown, is it still true that if you want to open a new restaurant, you have to wait for one to close because of the sewer?
That's correct. They can't expand. They can't. There's many stores that are vacant right next to a restaurant that's operating. They would move into that second side and put more seats in, but they cannot meet the county health requirements. So that is an issue, but certainly we are at the beginning of it. I'm confident that we will have that sewering begin next year in late 19. In Smithtown, a standalone STP, a developer is going to move in where the Nassau-Suffolk Lumber Yard used to be, now gone. That's going to be 9,500 square feet of retail and 72 market rate apartments in the rear. An interesting issue we're working on with the industrial park is changing some zoning to put multifamily housing in the industrial park itself. That came out of an analysis done by Stony Brook University. Many of the high-tech businesses can attract employees that graduate from Stony Brook University and other universities simply because they cannot find housing. So that's another issue. I think multifamily housing will work, transit-oriented development will work in Smithtown. Each of our business districts have a railroad station in it, which is pretty advantageous. I think there's a need for it, but basically we're concentrating in the business districts for multifamily once those sewers go in.
I see that Eric has moved off to the side here because we're supposed to get, he's going to introduce two of our questioners. I have a question here, but I'm being good, but hang on for a second.
We got to hear from.
Well, hang on for a second. The other thing is, before you young people ask your questions. I just want to point out my favorite panel of the day. Food, drinks, and downtowns. Woo! It's not just for millennials, I don't think. But go ahead, Ed.
So just to put in context, I want to acknowledge Dr. Natalia Rogers, New York Youth Summit, and Diane, and from Amityville Schools and Levittown Schools, all schools that are involved. This is the 10th annual Youth Summit that we've done. We have 80 kids coming and going today, but you guys are from Amityville High, and just give your name and ask your question.
My name is Alejandra Mercado Torres, and I feel that the government is doing less and less to help environmental issues. I'm concerned about water pollution and flooding from storms. I feel that since we are living on an island, it's very important for us to focus on these issues. Besides the 5 cents on the plastic bag tax that Suffolk is doing, when is Nassau County going to start doing it? And what else are we going to do to help pollution? Because I feel like the plastic bag tax is not enough.
All right, some of you may not have been able to see them because it's a long table. The question basically is, Suffolk took care of those plastic bags. What's Nassau going to do? And the questioner is very, very concerned about the environment.
So I'll start off on this one. So in the town of Hempstead, we've been undergoing a lot of environmental initiatives. One of the things we did, we passed the first multi-year capital plan in the town, a 5-year plan. And one of the things that was incorporated into our capital plan was restoring our water quality lab in Point Lookout. The lab had been damaged during Sandy, and it had been laying barren since then. In the town of Hempstead, our Department of Conservation and Waterways is really an amazing group of individuals who are working on incredible projects, including expanding our shellfish hatchery, where we grow shellfish that we then repopulate into the waters, because each shellfish, an oyster, can filter like 30 gallons of water, I think, I don't know the exact numbers, I don't have them right here, but our shellfish are natural water filters. So we are improving and expanding our shellfish hatchery, and we are going to now devote funds to reopen our lab in Point Lookout. And we actually just put out an RFP for our lab in Point Lookout. And this is a really important resource, not only for the town of Hempstead, but for all of Long Island, because it will be the only water quality lab, to my knowledge, of its kind, and it will be a resource not only for us in terms of monitoring the water quality of our back bays and our waters surrounding Long Island. It will also be an incredible resource for our universities, because we plan to partner with a number of universities so they can send students to get involved in doing testing there and further their environmental studies.
Now you're talking to town officials. Your question specifically was about plastic bags. And I would recommend, Natalia, wherever you are, that someone put that to the, hey girl, that somebody put that to the Nassau County exec. Laura Kern will be here later. So the county actually was considering that, so you might want to talk to Laura Curran about that.
Joy, let me interject. For those of you who don't know, I'm also president of the Nassau County Village Officials Association. And last night at our executive board meeting, speaking about plastic straws, plastic bags, the styrofoam containers that you get from restaurants, all that junk. Well, the Village of Seacliff, Mayor Lieberman has passed a law which he has shared with the other Nassau County village officials. So the villages in Nassau County, at least, now can become proactive to get rid of the plastic bags, the styrofoam, the plastic utensils and straws, et cetera, especially Seacliff started it. They're a shoreline community, but they were willing to share it with the rest of the mayors in Nassau County, and we will probably, each on his own, move forward to do something similar.
And how many villages are there in Nassau?
64.
There you go.
So I just want to add as well, we've been looking at a plastic bag ban And what keeps coming back to us, well, Nassau County's going to be doing it, Nassau County's going to be doing it, and perhaps they will. But it's great to hear that Seacliff has taken the lead, and it's something that we certainly are looking at in North Hempstead. The other thing in terms of the environment is we haven't forgotten about the importance of protecting our aquifers, and we need to make sure that we stand strong against the city opening up these Jamaica wells, because the impact on our aquifers could be devastating. And I know many of the supervisors who are actually sitting on the panel have written letters, thank you, to support that. And one other thing, with recycling, I also believe that the single recycling was something that our executive director of solid waste management had advised against. But we need to do a much better job of educating our population about what recycling actually is. You cannot put out dirty things and think that that's recycling. And I know there's a lot of conversation about whether glass actually should be recycled. And I know some of the municipalities in Suffolk County have said that they're not going to be accepting that in recycling. But in the meantime, if you're putting out glass and you're putting out tuna fish cans, you have to wash them. Because the minute you don't and you put them out and you think you're recycling, you're not, because it contaminates everything else that you've put out. So this is something that we're trying to work on in terms of educating our residents as to what recycling actually means.
And I concur. In terms of recycling, it's essential that we embark upon a intensive education program and utilize the young people, because they teach the rest of the family. And on the issue of the environment, nothing's more important than clean drinking water. We have the Grumman Navy plume in the town of Oyster Bay, which has been my highest priority. Cleaning it up has been my highest priority for 15 years. Working with the governor's office, we've gotten a commitment for a $150 million to build the infrastructure to hydraulically contain and fully remediate that plume, thus protecting our aquifers for many generations to come.
All right. You're the boss. Go with it.
Well, my name is Tyrone Taylor. As you guys probably heard, I'm a student at Amityville High School. I'm planning on going to college next year, and I'm realistically, I'm probably going to need to get a student loan. I plan on working very hard, and after I graduate, I want to come back to Long Island and live the rest of my life here, create my life here. But I'm worried, living in Long Island is very expensive. And some of the jobs, especially at entry level, I might not be able to, have the life that I envisioned for myself at that point. So I was wondering, what do you guys, what were you guys trying to do for that? What was the plans or something? Because it's just a concern of mine. I really want to finish my life here. My friends are here, my family here, so I want to be with them. But if it's not feasible,
So I'm going to go to the Suffolk side. The question, it seems to me, is about what y'all doing about jobs, living wages that's going to help us actually live here and plant a life here.
Well, I think part of the answer is twofold. I think we do need to attract businesses here that are high-paying jobs and entry-level jobs that you can work your way up and continue to stay here. But I think one of the other issues that we miss sometimes is that there's levels of housing and levels of affordability. A lot of the affordable workforce housing we have now is based on one person living in an apartment, that the expense cannot be shared with a roommate. And sometimes it makes it difficult for people to do that as they're sort of, when people have their first homes they buy, you have your first home and then you have your transition home. And we don't do the same with apartments here on Long Island. So I think that we need to consider doing that here. And I also think that we need to reach out to some of our larger businesses here that do have a hard time attracting their employees here, to invest in housing here to supply for their workforce housing while they're working at that company, so that they can bring people in at the entry level, and until they're able to get some more experience and garner a higher wage, that they'll be able to start there and stay here. And this way we can keep our workforce that we need here in place.
All right, I'm going to wait for Eric to come up because I need a consultation. Excuse me for talking.
Quick, kind of like a speed.
All right, speed question, and this one was delivered up here, and I know y'all going to love this one. What's the impact of this salt elimination limit of 10,000, 20,000 on budget's future tax increases? What is the impact of the elimination of the salt? Real fast.
I'll start. I don't think it has that much of an impact when we sit down and do our budgets. We still have to run a government. What is the impact? I believe it's very harmful to New York State and Long Island in particular. We are an area that will be impacted negatively by salt. I am hopeful that our congressional delegation can work to eliminate that. You are being penalized because you are contributing more to a government that provides infrastructure and other things as opposed to other areas in the nation. Salt should go. Salt in our wounds stings.
Anybody want to try to top that one, or are we going to bring it on home? You know, it's kind of, you could go.
So I'd just like to add, what is the impact? The impact is that I'm hearing from some of our residents that it is becoming more difficult to sell their homes because of the potential impact of salt.
That's not good. First off, I'd like to thank you all for your attention, even y'all at the back door, and to be honest, that's probably where I would have been too. It's kind of interesting to me that over time, we've gone from talking about how Long Island never gets anything done to talking about solutions like legalizing apartments and homes, to actually building multifamily and having that be a positive thing. It's extraordinary over a decade, I guess, right? So I thank again for your time and for your attention. It's tough early in the morning. And I thank each and every one of the panel members, because it's not easy being up here with me, is it? Thanks again. Bye.
Let's give a hand to Joy Brown and all the supervisors for sharing their policies, their projects, their goals, and their ideas.